Welcome to episode 116. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Veeam version 12 launch worldwide GA day. Jason, welcome.
Yeah, you are not my Valentine, just to be very, very clear. But in every other way, always excited to join you for another live stream. What a big day, right? So V12 and of course another segment in the DPR report as well.
Yeah, and speaking of worldwide general availability, love to have you type in your comments where you might be tuning in from. We've already got some that have identified themselves, but put a little note in there where you may be joining us. I'm in Colorado, Jason's in Texas, our producer's in Georgia. We've got someone that's already come in from Mexico, as we see there. And then
My neighbors to the south.
looking across over on Europe, we've got some of our production team in Romania as well. So we'll get back to this a couple different times. But also, if you have any comments, questions, feel free to enter that as well. We are quadcasting on 4 different platforms and persist on our YouTube channel. So, Jason, it's always been a myth that nobody changes backup software. And I mean, we can just kind of decompose that a little bit because the fact that there's been share shift over the last arguably 2 decades, the big three aren't necessarily the big three anymore. We've seen obviously Veeam itself has come from. I was first looking at market share with Veeam was number 7, and now depending on who you look at, number 2 globally, close to number 1. But things change, people change, solutions. So love to get your thought before we dig into the data. This whole notion that nobody switches, was that ever accurate in your view?
No, it was never accurate. It was always more religion than anything else. When you talk to really, really large enterprises, and it was so hard to get it in, right? So you used to have to pay for professional services for weeks or months at a time. Your backup admin, when you bought the new product, would go off to backup school for 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, for all those reasons, 25 years ago, backup was really ingrained. When you committed to one of those, usually the ones that had like the 3-letter acronyms associated with them, you were in it because it was so hard to switch. But then what's happened, especially since virtualization, so really it's kind of Veeam's fault 15 years ago, was that the needs of the workload outweighed the needs of the status quo. I'm paraphrasing some Commander Spock for those that might have gotten into that. But the idea is, as much as you didn't want to change from that legacy backup solution, you just couldn't get good backups on the new workloads. And so it became worth the change. And then over time, of course, it just got easier and easier. But now really it's confidence, workload centricity, right? So as you modernize production, you got to modernize protection. For all of those reasons, backup ain't as sticky as it was.
Yeah, and so that's what you and I have observed, but we've got hard data from the industry's largest research instrument ever in the history of the space of backup recovery or availability.
Yep.
4,200 global respondents from 28 countries. That's a series that we've been breaking things down. We asked a simple question there in white. What is the likelihood that your organization will switch its primary backup solution or service within the next 12 months? Again, a sample size of 4,200. Pretty interesting what jumps out. I always like to look at the boundary conditions, Jason.
Yep.
2% in the red, basically at 12 o'clock there. 2% said we definitely will not. 6%, if you go now counterclockwise just slightly, 6% said very unlikely. From a strong sentiment viewpoint, those are pretty low numbers.
Yeah, this is not the religion that it was 25 years ago, right? So, and look, there's greens, there's grays, and there's the oranges and reds. And this is not a good versus bad. It's not even really an indictment toward the industry overall. I will say that I also like boundary conditions. So let's kind of change this up a little bit. The somewhat likelies, the somewhat unlikelies, I call those the undecided. So let's just kind of take those out of the conversation for a second. And so now what you're looking at is 8% unlikely to change. Now, some of those are going to say it's too hard, and others, those are going to say, I like what I got. And that whole window is 8% of the market, right? As opposed to 57%, more than half of the 4,200 organizations surveyed said they expect to switch, not just add a backup product. they expect to switch their primary backup solution or service over the next year, over half of them. So I think that's an amazing stat.
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout out. We've got the QR code that Jason's put in the upper right-hand side there for this research. I think we'll also probably slip it into chat as well, but you can see at the bottom lower left, very simple URL, VEE.am/DPR23. That just means Data Protection Trends Report 2023 QR code or that simple URL. But yeah, if it's pretty polarizing display here. I mean, one of the things I used this data for is we had our sales kickoffs within Veeam globally about 3-ish weeks ago. And I just couldn't help but tell people, look, if less than 10% of the market say they're really unlikely to change, and we're getting close to 60% said they are likely to change. Yep. And we're going to decompose shortly here the reasons why they say they're going to change. You all should be able to make your quota and achieve your objectives this year because clearly there is a market shift that's taking place. This is a sentiment survey. It doesn't necessarily mean 57% will switch. And also, conversely, doesn't mean that 8% won't switch. Right. However, sentiment shows that there is at least interest. There's, maybe stated another way, there is some level of dissatisfaction such that you would be willing to consider making a change.
Yeah. And I mean, look, there's a lot of reasons for that. I would also tell you, in fact, for those that might be in the backup industry or partners that are out there, be talking to your customers about, hey, are you in that gamut? Because some of them are Veemers, and then all the other folks that want to be Veemers, and so anyway, so you got to protect both sides of that conversation. But yeah, it's really interesting the amount of shift, and I really think it comes down to what is it that would drive that change. So if we take it out of backup, first you ask somebody, hey, are you interested in buying a new car? And then you ask, what's wrong with your old car? What are you looking for in the next car? So let's look at what some of those change drivers are. Dave, do you want to take a look at the map before we switch over? Otherwise, we'll get right into change drivers.
Yeah, sure. And I want to give a shout out to Paul Zwagerman, who on Facebook, we are on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Paul said, hey, thanks for the shout out on version 12. So want to give a hello and thank you for that. I think we got a question as well that came in about Veeam and OpenStack KVM agentless. Today, what we just released is not KVM support per se, but Red Hat support. Version 3 of our RHEL support went out today, which is agentless and includes change block tracking. We worked hard with Red Hat to embed that into the kernel itself. So do want to start thinking of a shout out globally. I see a bunch of countries coming in here. Jason, I think you're going to be happy because it's some of the ones that you really appreciate from a ability to go and get a good steak. That's the tease I will give you. But so you can probably imagine where that might be. And wow, we're updating the map in real time because more and more people are coming in. This has been a big day for folks tuning in live. We generally have literally up to a couple thousand pieces of additional viewership when we persist for the rest of the week. So we get a number of live viewers, hundreds and hundreds, and then up to thousands for the rest of the week. So let's jump back in while we're updating on the map side and take it to the next slide. Because, this begs the question, Jason, why? What is the challenge? What is the problem that people are facing?
Yeah, so this is a really busy slide. I would encourage folks, hit that QR code in the upper right-hand corner and grab the data from there. But yes, the data itself, the question was, in the long lines, which of the following would drive your organization to change its primary backup solution to a new solution or service? And I like that nuance there because when we actually did some qualitative after we did the quantitative, some organizations just said, look, I like my backup product. I just don't want to buy a 3-year perpetual license and the maintenance and the hardware and patch it, blah, 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 blah. Instead, I just want to find a cloud vendor who delivers backup as a service or DR as a service using my technology because I like the tech. I just don't want to babysit it anymore. So I like the fact that this question asks about new solution or service. They could choose a couple different options. That gives you the long lines to the right. And then they were also asked, if you had to choose just one, what's the most important driver of change? That's the short lines on there. This slide is a little busy. So let's go ahead and just take it down to what I think is probably the most interesting cut. We're going to mute out. Dave, you like the boundary conditions, so let's take a look at this. It wasn't that many years ago that for most organizations, they were looking for simply qualitative improvement, right? So they had a fixed set of production workloads they relied on. All of those were well understood. And so they just wanted their backups to work better for those workloads, right? And that's what happens when you're in a stable IT market. When you have a bunch of new workloads coming on, legacy backup solutions don't address new workloads very well. And so what you see is not the interest in qualitative improvement like RPO and RTO and SLA and TLAs that you see on the bottom. No, what you're looking for is just fundamentally, can I get a good backup? And I think that's what you're seeing here is on these boundary conditions. It's not about just qualitative improvement on the bottom. Foundationally, legacy backup is not keeping up. And so the number one thing they just need it to work, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. And there's an old saying, you can't recover that which you've not backed up. And you think about, especially the last 3 years, call them sort of the pandemic timeframe, a lot of digital transformation, a lot of accelerated bursting and movement to the cloud. However, things don't typically go away in their entirety. We're in a very hybrid type of infrastructure world that we live in, meaning on-prem remains, as we've seen through other breakdowns of our DPR workload surveys. Physical remains healthy on premises for most organizations, as well as on-prem virtual. The cloud, as we'd like to say, is not one thing. There's several different instantiations of it. So organizations are stretched thin, is how I read this. And they're first and foremost just trying to keep a good level of availability for ever expanding, both horizontally and vertically, workloads that they have to protect.
Yeah, I think that's a good read. So let's take a look at what comes next. So foundationally, number one, it's just got to work. Right? Yep. So the next question, and this is so much fun because, again, this comes back to that competitive landscape that we're in. If we're seeing all that shift around more than half organizations looking for something different, number one, it's got to work. Number two, there is this perception that it must be an appliance or it must be software only. There's a perception it must be cloud-based. No. It must be on-prem, right? And I think it's really interesting that when you look at the next band, we've color-coded these because really it's two sides of the same coin. You have almost the same numbers on both sides of the argument that says, I want to use different tools versus one ring to rule them all. I want a cloud service, and I got to run it on-prem. I want an appliance, and no, I want it software only. I think this is amazing that it really boils down to the number two driver is it's got to fit each environment. And Dave, catch me on this one. There is not one ring to rule them all. There is not a single form factor that trumps market.
No, and I really like that you color coded these, meaning, you can see two things, or not want to say diametrically opposed, but they're at face value somewhat the exact opposite. And so what that tells me is, here again, 4,200 global organizations, various sizes, various verticals, obviously various countries. So what we see is people have to make the best choice for their business and where their business is at today, which could evolve or change in the future. So flexibility becomes important instead of being prescriptive, to your point. Not one implementation or one notion is going to suffice for everyone. So it goes back to choice, but it goes back to optimizing the tool for your environment. As you said earlier about hypervisor support, going back, say, a decade and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
The business can't, be dictated to by the technology. It's the opposite. The technology has to support the needs of the business.
Yeah, and every once in a while you get this unicorn where some customers say, it's got to look like this because I read enough articles and I've seen enough marketing. It's got to look like this. And we've watched this, Dave. We've watched, one ring to rule them all, and it's never been true, right? The appliance has never been the scenario. A cloud service has never been the scenario. There's never been a backup product that was best in breed for every workload. So I like the fact that what organizations have really said is it's got to fit, right? From a manageability perspective, from a pricing consumption model perspective, this makes sense to me that really it just has to fit.
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout out to we've got a lot of engagement and questions coming in. So Ganesh asks about only file permission restore. We actually, yeah, Veeam Backup Replication version 12 that launched today actually added that feature or that capability, the ability to restore only the permissions, the access control lists versus the data payload and everything else.
Mhm.
So did add that. There's another question about database backups, operating system file backups. Short answer is yes, absolutely. Whether it's a virtual machine, Kubernetes, IaaS, PaaS, um, NAS, databases of various kinds, operating systems of various kinds, including bare metal recovery or restore various operating systems. Absolutely yes. And then we've got another one asked about trends for the next year. Let me get back on our team and hit that. Why don't I go ahead and bring up the map while I'm
Mhm.
looking for that question? Because I think we've got now like 19 countries that have come in. So,
Nice.
Jason, in addition to the states in the United States we mentioned earlier, we've got Wisconsin, Louisiana, Connecticut, and Illinois. If we look across the globe, we see a lot of coming in here: France, Armenia, United Kingdom, Germany, Ukraine, Turkey, Czech Republic, Russia. And then here's the ones that I was mentioning. I think you're get excited about:
Oh yeah,
Argentina and Brazil, home of wonderful food. Not that others aren't, but Jason likes his steak, so he gets excited when those light up. And
true
then
dat.
we see South Africa, Mozambique, Iraq, Mauritius. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Algeria, India, and Taiwan.
I'm not sure I've had Mauritius. I think it's Mauritius.
Yeah, I knew it as soon as
But
I
I
said it.
have not had them on one of ours before. So this is awesome, and thank you for joining.
Yeah, and quick update. I guess we're up to 21 or 22 countries. Japan and Toronto, Canada, just came in as well. So shout out there. Okay, so let's double click now back onto the data, Jason. We've seen that there's a couple different reasons why people may switch. In some cases, what percolates to the top is common. Then there's this whole host of things where people kind of want it their way, right? They
Yep.
want something that's going to fit in their environment. What's the next double click of why we think people are motivated to look at solutions?
Yeah, let's do some myth busting here. So we talked about reliability, we talked about form factor. The last one actually, I've muted it down, but notice that there's three different ways that you can talk about economics in a conversation with any product, not just backup. There is what's the actual sticker price? What does it cost me in hardware and software? That's price, right? Or there's consumption model, right? I don't want to pay for it up front. I don't want to pay for maintenance. I just want to pay by the drip, by the terabyte, by the workload, whatever. But it's an OpEx versus CapEx consumption model. And sometimes what the CFO says as far as how they pay will determine the solution more than anything else. In fact, that's true in 6% of respondents on this survey. And then the last one is around value. Right? It's not about how much I paid. It's not about how I paid it. It's about, am I unlocking ROI and TCO from that? Dave, what I think is interesting is all three of the economic considerations. There's like, what, 14 options on this list?
Yep.
All three of the economics are on the bottom third because if it's not reliable, if it doesn't fit your environment, then the fact that you might be saving money doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to provide business value. Cost matters at some point, but free but not suitable for your environment isn't the best optimization by any stretch. So let's aggregate this all up. What we really learned here are two primary themes. We've already asserted that cost is a little bit lower, but reliability in terms of you've got to capture the data, you need to
Yep.
back it up. What you're backing up or capturing is probably expanded and not a lot of workloads going away. If you're an IT professional, you get the pleasure of oftentimes consuming more, not shifting entirely from one thing to another, at least
Right.
not very rapidly. But flexibility, I know that's a key one for you, Jason.
Yeah, and again, I'm just going to keep pounding on the fact that it's got to fit, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you do advanced systems management and you are all HPE or Cisco UCS or Dell or whatever, the idea of putting a white box into your rack should be abhorrent to you, right? Because you're going to have to manage that differently from a firmware and systems management and monitoring perspective. Same thing on if you are tired of being the smartest kid in the room because you are self-managing your backups and you want to go to BAS or DRAS where you can get some experts that'll actually monitor and manage for you. Love that idea. But there is not a single scenario where the cloud is perfect for everyone, a white box is perfect for everyone. It's got to fit.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes back to we're going to talk about what modern backup looks like in another part of one of these episodes. And in that one of the things looks like the number one or number two differentiator was that backup needs to be part of a more holistic systems management strategy. You don't want to have to manage this over here, manage this over there, and then manage backup outside of those things. It should be more holistic, which, by the way, I saw there was a question on Oracle Data Guard that came in during one of the chats along the way. I'm not as familiar with Oracle Data Guard as I am Oracle ZDLRA PDQ TBD. I mean, there's a lot of letters in whatever that one was. But I always go back to whenever you have a single workload protector, you could make the same case for the little backup utility that's in Salesforce Export or in Azure on the Azure Backup Service. How many backup tools do you really want to manage when you know that you're going to have a really diverse set of workloads that have the same kinds of retention requirements, have the same kinds of governance controls? I mean, how many utilities do you really want to manage in your environment? That's the thing that for me trumps everything else. But Dave, you may have more ODG experience than I do.
Yeah, from DataGuard perspective, DataGuard's a great tool. It sometimes can be viewed as expensive, but one of the things that I would say is exactly to your point. Do you need a specific solution or a generalized solution, but also a generalized solution with the ability for the DBA, Oracle DBA in this case, to be able to directly monitor and directly facilitate the backups? I see another question from Peter. File stream unstructured backup of plus 4 terabyte databases. Yes, can absolutely cover that. Question on, let's see, compared to TSM. So I was a development manager on TSM or ADSM initially, now Spectrum Protect. So you probably won't catch me saying anything bad about TSM. Others seem to view it as being complex. My wife and I came from the mainframe world in IBM backup. So to me, since 1989, it was very part and parcel of what I did. So I don't view it as complex, but people tend to view Veeam as being a bit easier to use. I think we're going to jump on the map. Before we do, Jason, we've covered a lot of research. Maybe we should just hit a little bit about some of the great stuff that you and our great colleague, Julie Webb, have been working together to produce.
Yeah, it's fun that you and I get to do these live streams and talk about all this data over time. We've both been at Veeam for roughly 5 years. Really, the linchpin that makes all this stuff happen is a lady by the name of Julie Webb. She's been at Veeam 9 years ish, and so the current research portfolio that comes out of Veeam, we've got 4 projects that are all less than a year old. We've been talking from the data protection trends report in the lower right-hand corner. That's 4,200 unbiased. This is our macro research every year, largest in the industry. Been a lot of fun to do. We produce a Salesforce report because we wanted to understand the Salesforce market. We produce a cloud protection trends report looking at 5 different personas involved in as a service architectures and what their strategies are. And then honestly, my favorite, I mean, DPR is cool, but my favorite is we use an unbiased panel and they surveyed 1,000 organizations, all of whom had suffered at least one ransom attack in the prior 12 months. And that came out as the ransomware trends report last May. We do this event, Dave, almost every May. Maybe there'll be more ransomware research. I'm just making a hypothetical, but it's possible.
It's very possible if you join us live in Miami for VeeamON 2023, or we'll have a remote option as well. Very, very possible you could see an update to ransomware trends. Probably just increment the year.
Yeah, I may as well. It's worked out so far, But so lots of different research out there. Dave, I know we want to land the plane just a little bit early today, but we got to give a plug out. If you didn't tune in before our live stream for what we did on announcing V12, there is so much good stuff in that release. You owe it to yourself to go check out the replay of that and start downloading it. I will tell you, during the 1 hour of that live stream, I updated all my servers to V12 without a hitch. It was actually surprisingly clean. Love that.
Yeah, yeah. And for our friends in Europe or EMEA, Middle East and Africa, and all of the Americas, you can watch that download right now at go.veeam.com/V12. For our friends in Asia Pacific, Japan, we're going to redo the live event later in our time, earlier in your time. I believe it's 10 a.m. Singapore or local time. I was told that the actual live version that aired first just a couple hours ago, Jason, we had over 17,500 concurrent people viewing at the same time. We'll see where we go from there. But, definitely encourage everyone to check that out. Next Monday, we're going to be back talking about designing for cyber resiliency. And then next week, we will have our friends Rick Vanover and company doing a Thursday Tech Bites as well. But really quickly, I do want to give one more shout out to the map because we had a lot more countries pop in. So if we look over...
We're turning the world green there, man. Love that.
It's been a really amazing day. New Jersey, Ohio, Quebec and Canada. We already had people in Toronto and other locations, but Quebec came in. We've got Belgium, Sweden, Romania. I failed to mention Panama, I think, over earlier, but Kenya and Japan have also come in. I believe a second one from Japan. So shout out there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. We appreciate all of the interaction as well. You can check us out next week. Be sure to check out the version 12 event. Jason, it's not just version 12. It's version 4 of our Google Cloud support went live today. Version 6 of our Veeam Recovery Orchestrator product. I can just go on, but be sure to check out all of that. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, stay positive, and we'll see you on the next live stream.